Hello and welcome to How to Discern. I don't know, there was something about making this video which I was just not looking forward to, which I know sounds bad, but I feel like in some ways I've just talked about this topic a lot of times. Maybe I actually haven't, because I realize I only made one TikTok video about it and one post about it, but I feel like the elements of it are just repeated over and over and over again, but it hasn't really been packaged or bottled as How to Discern, so I mean, here we are. Makes sense. So let's talk about how to discern. For the sake of this video, I feel like discernment is primarily related to decision making in our physical world. How can we choose between 1 and 2, right and wrong, left and right, etc.? It is kind of odd and interesting, which I do feel like I have an answer for, as to how we have evolved to such a place in the collective. We are very intelligent, we have a lot of experience, and we have the ability to deduce, right, from a scientific perspective. Yet for some reason it seems like we're all on different pages, and I feel like this in particular was exacerbated by the COVID pandemic. I mean, ironically, this does make a lot of sense to me because we were really pushed to the furthest level as a collective. Our fears were front and center, and we had to make a lot of tough decisions with also at the time not a lot of information, to be fair. I think that this approach really hinges on the fact that on a subconscious level, we do want the best for ourselves as well as everybody else. However, those decisions and that outcome and perhaps that process or that way of getting there may differ from person to person. Hypothetically, in a world where we were all aligned to not only our own intuition, but tapping into the collective, we would really be on the same page with how to do this. But I think there are a lot of blocks that we are experiencing on an individual level, which, can, therefore is on a collective level, which inhibits this process. And I feel like it's a lot of fear and it's a lot of negative energy. So while people say that people in the collective are not aligning themselves people say that people in the collective are not aligning themselves to facts. However, I don't feel like that's the issue. I feel like we have a really big problem with not transmuting our own negative energy, and this is being projected out into the world. So that is one thing I will just not, go too deep into in terms of how to transmute negative energy. It's just going to take up way too much time. And I believe I've already made a video about that. If not, you can see more on my site. But yeah, I mean, that is really, in my opinion, the answer. It just makes us a clearer channel. Again, it aligns us to our intuition and that of the collective. So yeah, it's all good things. I think that a really important thing to talk about is empirical evidence, because for whatever reason, right? This is kind of the guidelines that we live by. So I'm not saying it is a problem or it's negative that you believe in or you align to empirical evidence. I think it is really fundamentally important for the collective because it is alignment, right? It is getting us all on the same page. We can move forward together. We can make sense of our lives and our decisions moving forward. But there is an inherent problem with empirical evidence, which is that it is solely deductive, meaning that we can really only base this information off of patterns. Even when we are projecting it into the future, it's still based off of patterns. And we know that as conscious beings, our consciousness is always changing, ebbing, and flowing. It is not pattern. Our physical reality and our matrix is a pattern, but we are not patterns, and we are going to be shifting and changing as time goes on. And evidence is really only relative to a certain point in place in time, and this is proven over and over again. What we knew not even just a couple of decades ago, even just a couple of years ago, has really dramatically changed. And like I said, there's absolutely still a need for it, and we need to continue to put our effort and money and resources into it, but it just can't be anything and everything because it's changing. And so we have to have a level of discernment that goes beyond empirical evidence. And on top of that, evidence is not subjective all of the time. I can tell you with complete certainty that there have been times, opportunities, particularly in the medical field, where I've gone to get treatment or seek out advice, and the solution to my problems were going very against the evidence that we have. If you have any frustration with living your life, how to live your life, making these decisions, and what is best for you personally, guarantee you it lies beyond what currently exists, what we currently know. It just is the case. We're conscious beings. It has to live beyond it. So there is a drawback to empirical evidence, and we have to be more perceptive. We have to be more intuitive if we are going to ever evolve. If we think about it logically, deduction over and over and over again, there's no evolution there. Our consciousness needs to evolve. It is evolving, and there just has to be more to be a part of this decision-making process. There just has to be. And this is really challenging, like what is the case? I think there was like a TikTok that I did talking about who and what to believe, and my main points were that first, you should understand if you're receiving any information, is this from a valid source? Okay. If it's not, you may need to kind of do your own research. You may need to put consciousness, intuitive interjection into it. If it is from a reliable resource, then you still kind of need to do these steps. It's just like maybe like one leg up, but sourcing this information and being really smart and intelligent before you jump to conclusions is going to be really important. And the key kind of like common denominator throughout all of these things is you really need to pay attention to your emotional reactions. Are you reacting out of a place of fear, out of negativity, or are you reacting from more of a place of positivity, which I think is in one of my steps, so perhaps I won't go there right away. So I have 6 steps, or I guess 6 points in regards to how to discern for your own self, how to make decisions for your own life, perhaps the lives of others that you're connected to. Obviously, they have autonomy and control, but how do you make these decisions moving forward? And obviously, again, crux of it is transmuting negative energy, but keep these in mind when you're making decisions moving forward, particularly if they're like really high level, stressful decisions. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is to kind of like wholeheartedly, fundamentally understand the concept of what this decision is about, right? Or what the thing is about. We have a tendency to only look at things from like at face value, right? What we're seeing. But if we consider that anything and everything really does have an overarching concept and theme, anything and everything is interconnected, we can start to understand the point of what's going on, right? If you feel like your life is coming to an end, if something has broken or it's breaking, if there's some sort of tragic incident, what is the deeper meaning behind this? And I know that like intellectualizing something when you're already in a high state of stress may not be particularly helpful, but if you can just take a step back to understand why this happened, how this happened, and just gain more clarity and context around it, you'll just be a little bit more informed about your decision, right? Like you just don't want to have a knee-jerk reaction and only have only have one piece of the puzzle. So really, again, taking a step back and looking at it through an egoless perspective lens, and just making sure that you're understanding it completely before you move forward. That would be the first step. Next, you're going to want to breathe into the concept or into the acceptance of it. So say, for example, you're receiving really difficult information. Maybe it's like really triggering you. When you're kind of like digesting it and you're breathing into it, you don't want to kind of like tense up and trap the energy inside of your body. You want it to essentially kind of like roll through you. You can do this with visualization of energy starting from the top of your head down to the bottom. You can do this with breathwork techniques. Maybe you can even do a little meditation. I think I have something coming up more so related to meditation, but you just don't want to not accept it, because that's gonna just be a problem. That's kind of like laddering into the first part where you're just like not understanding it wholly and conceptually, and you just want it to run through your body. Okay, then you're of course going to want to analyze your solutions or your resolutions to this issue or this problem. Okay, right, I remember. So when I was talking a little bit more about if this is from a trusted source and it aligns to your intuition, likelihood is you can move forward with whatever you're looking to do, whatever you're trying to do. If the answer is no to one or more of these, you definitely need to do some more research. Also consider that unless this is like a life or death situation that you need to decide right this minute, which is really unlikely in like relative to all of the decisions that you need to make in your lifetime. Sometimes you just need more time. And energy itself, like universal energy, it exists beyond our energetic body. Sometimes it takes some time to resolve. So, there are definitely external factors at play. Things working kind of like behind the scenes. So sometimes you're just not supposed to know this exact answer right now, which kind of corresponds to having a sense of peace and grace about intuitive information, which I talked about in my spiritual psychosis video, that sometimes you just are not supposed to know at this like very, very second. But you can always set the intention to know, to receive signs and messages and information. So I think this is kind of just about taking control of the situation, not allowing the situation to control you, because it is sometimes easy to externally localize power and control because you don't have to take on as much self-responsibility, but that usually doesn't give you good results in the long term, so I don't recommend it. Not sure if this is included in the other steps, but the other thing that you can do is visualize different solutions. For some reason, a lot of people think that visualizing a solution which is negative is like prophetic in some way, shape, or form. I actually find it's the opposite, because I feel like it is transmuting your anxiety and your fears. So I actually would recommend it. I mean, unless you're literally like saying that you want it to happen, I don't see how it would. Our mental, emotional, spiritual reality is not our physical reality. They're obviously interconnected, but just because you dream up something doesn't mean it's going to happen. I think when people get confused about this, it's because you're ruminating so much on this energy that like you eventually somehow land in a self-fulfilling prophecy, but that is not visualizing something to happen. I channel messages all the time. I visualize shit all the time. It does not, always happen in real life. It really never happens in real life. So the two are not connected in that particular way. But yeah, for people who are really struggling in terms of like their life path and a lot of major decisions, like moving, for some reason this comes up a lot with moving, I tell them when they're in more of like a lucid state, so that could be right before you go to bed or early in the morning, to visualize outcomes. And, I'm not saying everybody is going to get these crazy clairvoyant intuitive hits, but you can kind of like, I genuinely feel like everyone has a level of intuition that they can feel what is going to happen in the future. You're going to get some kind of impression if you ask for it, so long as you're not unintentionally blocking yourself from receiving it. And you can address that very specifically by setting the intention not to block yourself. It may take a little bit of time. You may need a little bit of patience. I will say that. But it's particularly helpful when you just don't know. You know what I mean? Like what the future is going to hold. But there's enough energetic information, even though we can't determine our future, for you to get a pretty good idea, in my opinion. Okay, next step is to let it flow through your intuition, which is kind of piggybacking off of my last sentiment, but this is really about honing into your intuition and developing it and strengthening it. And there are so many different ways to develop your intuition. Honestly, in my opinion, it's like 90% trust, right? It's doing things in the face of adversity, the face of physical reality, right? Like if you're getting a truth that maybe isn't real at the moment or like hasn't happened yet, depending on what the repercussions of, executing that intuition are, I say go with it usually, right? Like it's going with your intuition for the most part does not have detrimental effects if it's true intuition, you know what I mean? If it's not fear. I think some people get intuition and fear confused a little bit. But intuition is something that everybody needs to be practicing like yesterday. So this is kind of like sidelining. It's very interconnected and very related, but it's just saying that like you need to continue to develop your intuition because it's just going to be helpful for you in the long term. Not that you're going to know anything and everything about your life, like that's not the point. The point is this kind of like filtration system that you can develop. Okay, the next one, which kind of is anything and everything, is simply setting intentions. So you can set intentions for anything and everything. You can, like I was saying with that visualization technique, you can set intentions for that. You can set the intention to just gain clarity on the question or the path or whatever it is that you need to know about, that you need to make a decision about. Always set intentions whenever you're seeking clarity, whenever you're confused. Intentions can be somewhat broad. Like you can set an intention to feel a certain way. It doesn't have to be like super, super specific. I know that kind of goes against, manifesting. A lot of times it is great to be super, super specific, but if you're so far from determining what that is, I don't see how it could be detrimental to just kind of start small and work your way up. Okay, lastly is to work with the consequences or lack thereof, your decisions or your lack of decision, essentially. This is really just about taking responsibility for what has taken place. And this isn't, me just trying to come down on you for the sake of coming down on you. It's really about avoiding, rejecting, and repressing this energy or the energy consequence of the decision, essentially. That's not something that you want to do. You want to make sure that you are digesting, you have a capstone of this entire experience, because if you are rejecting and repressing this energy, you're probably not learning from it or learning from it in the most effective and the most efficient way. So take responsibility. I know it can be hard, but when you do that, you just have a lot more control over your life. And having more control over your life is really interconnected with trusting yourself and intuition, and it's just a good thing, overall. But yeah, for the most part, this is for learning's sake. So that's a lot of steps for making a decision, and I don't know if you necessarily need all of them, if you need all of them in sequence, but keep it in mind. And I think that this is very beginner-ish friendly, and as you go throughout life, you obviously won't need to be doing this. It's not like I sit there and roll through all of these super specifically when I'm making these decisions, but it's kind of helpful because some things get to you. You know what I mean? There are still things in my life that I'm just I got no idea. I have no idea what the right answer is, what the right decision is. And, unfortunately, in a lot of these cases, it's about fear and it's about not wanting to know. And that kind of prevents us from moving forward, and it stagnates us, and we don't really want that. So the umbrella over this, or the elephant in the room, is that a lot of times it is chalked up to fear. And I think to ladder that back to, the COVID pandemic, I think that was the overriding factor with a lot of people's decisions. And I get it, right? You have to self-preserve in times of crisis, but you don't want to be a coward, basically, I guess I could say. You want to be brave. And bravery, in my opinion, and strength, in my opinion, is not about knowing what to do at any given point in time. It's not about being the smartest. It's not about having all of the answers. It's about consistently pushing yourself to move forward, to face your fears, and being open-minded and being adaptable and resilient and never giving up. And I think that is what true bravery and true strength is. So you don't have to know anything and everything. I think you just have to have resilience at the end of the day. I think that's why we're still here as a collective of people. So, all right, good luck with your decisions moving forward, your discernment. Bye.